Good morning, Connor.
Good morning, Irene.
Oh, I'm still sleepy.
Yeah, me too.
But I'm not going to mention right away. I'm going to see if you can guess what we're talking about. We're going to talk about a formation that every single person that passed through western Nebraska saw as they were traveling on the Immigrant Trails. And if you've played the game Oregon Trail, you're familiar with this. So it's also had some different names over time. The fur trappers called it the Chimney. Warren Ferris of the American Fur Trading Company called it Nose Mountain, which makes zero sense to me. Virgin Pringle, who he has a diary. He's dead, but a lot of people reference his diary from the trail. He called it the Smokestack, and the Lakota Sioux called it Elk Penis.
I like that last one.
Yeah.
Let's just go with that one.
Okay.
Today we're going to talk about elk penis.
And so for those of you not familiar with any of that, we're going to talk about Chimney Rock. And yesterday, which would have been June 29th? Yes, was June 29th. They finally opened up a public trail, and so that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it. I had intended on going and had a flare-up of my rare eye disease, and my eye doctor said, please don't leave the house till Monday. So
It's probably what? It was really hot.
Yeah. And when I have a flare-up, any kind of bright light makes it worse. So she told me stay home, gave me lots of medicine. Hopefully it'll be cleared up on Monday. And so it kind of stinks a little bit that I couldn't be there, but it's not going anywhere.
Hopefully not.
And I'm hoping when I go, not a lot of people will be there, and I can walk around and take pictures and just kind of leisurely stroll around without being interrupted. So, Chimney Rock is on the menu today for storytelling on the plains. Joshua Pilcheran, Pilcheran. Not entirely sure.
McLaren?
Yeah, I spelled it. Other people can pronounce it. He was a fur trader and an Indian agent, and he eventually purchased a fur company in Missouri, and I forget the name of it now. But anyway, he was the first person to record a mention of Chimney Rock in 1827. But the fur traders with the Astors, who we've talked about before, were probably the first non-natives to see the rock as early as 1813. They just didn't really write anything down about it. They would refer to it as the chimney to other people, but Joshua here was the first one to actually write it down. And while I was doing some research, I also found out that there was a small town named Chimney Rock, which once stood at the base of the formation, and that got me to thinking about 2019, I think it was. I was out there. There were some state archaeologists that were out doing some digs and stuff, and they took me over to the base of what used to be a house, and they were, measuring it up and all that other good stuff. And that was part of what we'll get to later on as well. They were out there specifically because they were trying to map the area for good likely areas for the trails that just opened up. And they were finding some other cool things too. But anyway, according to the National Park Service in 1830, Warren A. Ferris offered the first known estimate of Chimney Rock's height. Ferris wrote it's a half-mile in circumference at the base and rises to the height of 300 feet. And we're gonna have a problem here with Londo trying to get that branch that you brought in. If you want to just put it on top of the bookcase, he cannot get up there, and we should be good. And I was going to bring that up when we get to the talking about the natural flora and fauna that's out here. I thought that'd be a great addition. So watch, we'll be talking, and there'll be a loud crash, and he'll knock over the whole bookcase to get at it. Once when I was at the paper, I went to a emu rescue with the folks at the zoo, and I had 2 emu feathers until about a year ago when Londo finally got a hold of them and took off running. And when I finally found him, he was eating them, so I no longer have emu feathers. So anyway, the U.S. Geological Survey calculated the elevation of Chimney Rock in 1895 as 4,225 feet above sea level. They said the spiral has lost 30 feet in the last 150 years. Today, its summit rises 470 feet above the North Platte River and measures 325 feet tip to base, with the spire measuring 120 feet. During the time of western migration, Chimney Rock was substantially higher. Natural weathering, erosion, and lightning have cut down its height over the years, although the exact amount is disputed. The pillar, referred to as marl or earthly limestone by the emigrants, consists primarily of brutal clay interlaid with volcanic ash and bless you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And Arikari sandstone. Because the brule is susceptible to erosion, it undermines the Arikari, resulting in changes that are episodic and unpredictable, such as rock falls. The harder sandstone layers near the top have helped protect the pillar. In somewhat less striking fashion, this is the same geological principle that is demonstrated at Scottsbluff National Monument. Early accounts made by immigrants mentioned a split in Chimney Rock. Many of these immigrants made dire predictions about Chimney Rock's demise. The split can still be seen in the prominent landmark spire today. And after examining over 300 journal accounts of settlers moving west along the Platte River Road, historian Merrill Mattis concluded that Chimney Rock was by far the most mentioned landmark. Mattis notes that although no specific events took place at the rock, it held center stage in the minds of the overland trail travelers. For many, the geological marker was an optical illusion. Some claim that Chimney Rock could be seen upwards of 30 miles away, and though one traveled toward the rock spire, Chimney Rock always appeared to be off in the distance. In the immediate vicinity of Chimney Rock, there was an excellent spring that made it a favorite campsite. In the 1860s, there was a Chimney Rock Pony Express station that later became a telegraph and stage station. The exact location of this site is still unclear. 2 traditional sources place the station between Chimney Rock Formation, between the Chimney Rock Formation and the river. One source places the station at Fickling Springs, 9 miles northwest of Bridgeport, while the other source locates it 2 miles south and 1 mile west of Baird. So, Connor, I know you'll forgive me. Hopefully our listeners will forgive me for stumbling a little bit. It is a little bit difficult to read today because of my eye issues. But I wanted to mention a couple of things about what I just read. I came across some slightly different heights and widths of Chimney Rock, which is natural. It's going to happen. It depends who's measuring it. I went with the U.S. Geological Survey because they're the official ones and they're probably the most accurate. And then I just read yesterday, it was late last night, that part of the trail to the top of the monument is closed because they've had a rock slide again, which goes along with this about how fragile that land actually is. And it's not a surprise that Chimney Rock has tumbled away as much as it has because it's far more exposed. The monument has the benefit of being this giant land formation, so it's slowly chipping away at that, but Chimney Rock is just this tall spire, so it's a lot easier chipped away at.
Yep. And
then for folks who don't know, Merrill Mattis was also one of the superintendents at Scottsbluff National Monument, and he wrote quite a few books. When I wrote the book on the monument, I relied a lot on his stuff because he was a historian as well, and they have a great amount of information that he wrote. Some of it isn't available to the public, and because I was doing research on the monument, I got access to everything that they have. So I got to see a little bit more that he did that wasn't published, and if anyone ever comes across a book that he wrote, they're really good and interesting reads, and I would recommend them. And I'm not getting paid to do that, and Merrill Mattis has been dead for a while, so I don't think he's getting paid either.
Not collecting those royalties anymore.
Yeah. So according to History Nebraska, from the early 1840s to the late 1860s, more than 500,000 people traveled over the Oregon, California, or Mormon trails, which OCTA, the Oregon California Trails Association, this weekend, well, all this past weekend, this weekend, they were having their yearly conference here. And I mentioned that because I remember reading in the information for their conference, this is the first time they've had their conference out here since all of the local museums have been upgraded. So Chimney Rock's Visitor Center, they are Visitor Center and Museum. Chimney Rocks was done in 2020, right around that same time, because it was supposed to be 2019 for the 100th anniversary of the monument, but it got some of the stuff got delayed because of the government shutdown in 2018. And then where else were they going? A couple of other places that they're going hadn't been upgraded since the last time they were here. So even the folks that were here that are members, they're going to get to see all kinds of cool new things, which I thought was awesome. And I thought about going to listening to some of the talks they were giving. I know I had talked to you about that, but even though they said the talks were free, every time I tried to sign up to register for one, I kept getting charged money, and I got really frustrated, and then I got busy at work, so I missed all the talks. But, I mean, it's okay. I'll live. I'll I can do the research, and I know who the folks were because they're listed on the website. I can go look up, their research and what books they've published and read it. It just would have been cool to hear an hour summary of stuff. So all the immigrants passed Chimney Rock in the largest voluntary human migration in history, and pioneers wrote more about Chimney Rock than any other place on the trails. The Pony Express, the telegraph, and the railroads followed the same Platte River Valley route across Nebraska that the trails did. So, I mean, I think we've hammered that point home in our previous episodes. The trails were super important, and, from animals to people. To information, because you got the telegraph on there too. So on June 27th, 1849, Elisha Perkins wrote in his journal, "Camped opposite to and about 1 mile from Chimney Rock, I had some curiosity to see this. Imagine a pyramid standing alone, though surrounded by rocky precipices, some 150 feet high, and at its base 20 feet through. No conception can be formed of the magnitude of this grand work of nature until you stand at its base and look up. If a man does not feel like an insect, then I don't know when he should." Makes me want to see how big it was in 1849, because I have been to the base of it, and yeah, it is big, but I've also grown up knowing about Chimney Rock and what it looked like, and so I think some of that awe that Elijah talks about here was taken away from me solely because I grew up knowing about it.
Yeah, I grew up right next to it, so I hear you. I mean, Chimney Rock's been a part of, just me growing up, it's been a part of this landscape, so you really do kind of forget about it. You don't really notice it as much. In fact, I'm a little disappointed that people don't notice the other rock formations that are out there. The one that they call Courthouse Rock, I believe.
Oh, Courthouse and Jail Rock, yeah.
That are almost completely cubical. Those are remarkable too, but you really don't hear about those, at least not a lot by the pioneers. So, It's a lot of Chimney Rock, Chimney Rock.
Yeah, and I don't understand why, because you have to pass by Courthouse and Jail Rock too, and
Yep, you'll go right by them if you're going west. So.
And I want to go out and I always forget which one is which, but one of them you can climb up and around on. And when I went with my husband, he did, and I didn't because I was sidetracked by pictures. So I want to go back out there, but that has a fantastic backstory as well. And you have to pass by those to pass by Chimney Rock. So they're just not as advertised, I think. And there's no visitor center, so you turn off the highway. So even the historical marker is off the highway, and if you're there in the summer, the trees kind of block it unless you know that it's there. And then if you don't know it's there, you read the sign, and some people don't know, drive to the end of the road and you can go to them and climb them. So I think it's just a lack of advertising and people knowing about it, because honestly, yes, I like the museum, I like the visitor center at Chimney Rock, but to me, Courthouse and Jail Rock is the more interesting story.
They are, and in my opinion, they were much more fascinating, because you could. We were talking about how you could see Chimney Rock from far away. I could actually see Courthouse and Jailhouse Rock first before you could usually pick out Chimney Rock. And I would usually try to locate them first so I can then locate Chimney Rock. So yeah, it's something completely different from people who just grow up here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't grow up here, and the first time I heard about Courthouse and Jail Rock, I was, what? Where is it? Where is it?
And when you see them, you know why they're named.
Yes.
They really do look like a courthouse and a jailhouse.
Yeah.
At least an old school one, so yeah.
But for whatever reason, pioneers decided to write about Chimney Rock. It got put in the game, and I actually interviewed the guy who created the Oregon Trail game.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because he came out and had they had some special sessions set up in Gearing at the Civic Center where people could play the game, and I interviewed him for that, and he kind of wanted to use the monument, but there was, at the time there was no way to really make that work in the game, and Chimney Rock was easier to make work, and it was also written about more, so they went with that, which is why you don't see Scotts Bluff National Monument. For
all those people who are maybe not quite old enough to remember the original Oregon Trail, it was from the green screen Macintosh. So it was very pixelated.
Yeah.
And so, making Chimney Rock would be more easier to do, I can imagine, than trying to find how to green pixelate the monument.
Yeah.
And then by the time Oregon Trail 2 is what it's called, the one that came out for Windows 95. And I became much more familiar with that version than the green screen, although I did play the old green screen version of it.
I've played every iteration of it so far.
Yeah.
So you're going to see me as a 95-year-old lady. I got to get the latest version for PlayStation 57,
Well, but even the Switch, which is the most recent one I believe they have, still mentions Chimney Rock, but does not mention any of the other monuments.
Yeah.
So that's a little sad.
Yeah. So it was popular. I think maybe you and I are in the minority, because I would much rather go to Jail and Courthouse Rock than Chimney Rock. Chimney Rock is just there. But I get it. It might be easier as well to pick out in a landscape, this big pointy thing as opposed to a rock that looks like a jail and a courthouse. Even though on foot, I think they're about a day apart on foot.
They are. They're not easy to get to from one to the other, from Chimney Rock to there. Yeah, it's about a day.
Yeah. So in 1941, 80 acres of land, including Chimney Rock, were transferred to the Nebraska State Historical Society by the Rosel F. Durnall family for preservation. In 1956, Norman and Donna Brown deeded additional land to the society. On August 9, 1956, Chimney Rock was designated a National Historic Site by the federal government, and on October 15, 1966, Chimney Rock was added to the National Register of Historic Places. So all along, people are still saying, this is important, we need to keep this, we need to keep this. In 1996, the Abbott Visitor Center opened, and I should have, oh gosh, it's a husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Abbott. I forgot to write their names down. But anyway, the Visitor Center opened, and it interprets geographic, environmental, and cultural significances of the site. In 2018, I had the privilege of covering the story when the Howard family donated their land. Well, they donated it, but they really sold it. It lies between the Visitor Center and Chimney Rock. So that's why you've never been able to hike out to the rock officially. Lots and lots of people have, and there were dirt trails, and I've hiked out there. And I'll get to how I got to hike out there in a minute. But this guy named Gordon Howard really felt that you should preserve history, and his family owned that piece of land. So the family always thought it'd be a good idea to have a trail out there, and they thought that that donation of land would be worth it. And I don't think they got the amount that the land would be worth if they sold it to developers, but that's not what the family was trying to do. So Gordon Howard had originally purchased that land when he had heard developers were going to put houses on the property. So if you look at where the Visitor Center is and where Chimney Rock is, imagine there, instead of the Visitor Center, there's houses all the way up to the base of Chimney Rock. And he just thought, yeah, no. So he was determined to get the land, and he didn't really have the money at the time. So I'm going to read from an article from 2018 when they had a big celebration at the Visitor Center, and I went and I talked to the family, and this is how I learned about it. Gordon had approached the owners and asked how much they wanted for the property. He went to the bank and spoke to Hod Cosman of Platte Valley Bank, and Cosman asked how much Gordon had for a down payment. And Dad reached into his pocket and laid a dime on the table, said Dan Howard, Gordon's son. He said, "This is how much I've got." Cosman said he couldn't loan Gordon such a large amount of money on a dime. Gordon said, "Yes, you can. Your family is on the board." Gordon convinced the bank to give him a loan. They believed in Dad and that he was worth the risk, Dan said. The property and his vision for it was worth the risk. Dan said the bank had a lot of heart and understanding for which he is thankful for. Immediately after Dan told that story and the deal was done, Cosman reached into his pocket and said, "Here's the dime," and gave it to Gordon's wife, Patty. So, I mean, I got to hear about that. So
Yeah.
That had happened like an hour or so before. They went to the bank to sign the paperwork, giving the property over to the Historical Society. And when that was done, Hod had kept that dime all these years and was like, here's that dime that he bought that with. So because it's small town America, and Hod Cosman knew Gordon, knew who he was, knew he was good to his word, that he would pay the money back, he was able to go to the board, which was his family, and was like, you know what? Yeah, we need to loan him the money. And it turned out to be a really good thing. There were a whole lot of stories folks told that day, including Gordon had a cap on one of his tooths or a filling, one of the two. Anyway, he had a tattoo of Chimney Rock on his tooth. So he really, really, really liked the place. And what many people don't know is that Gordon spent a lot of time during his life promoting tourism in western Nebraska and preserving such a historical landmark was not out of the ordinary for him. It wasn't a case of, no, we can't give you the money because the Chimney Rock's not important. It was a case of, you don't have the money, dude, to pay it back. Mm-hmm. And he convinced him otherwise, that, yeah, it's important and I'll find a way to pay the money back. So when Gordon fell ill later on, Dan had called History Nebraska about selling all the property so that the land could be preserved, and History Nebraska really can't afford to buy all the land that they had, but they settled on 360 acres with a price tag of $400,000, and pretty much all of that is what now is going to be this walkway hiking area. Gordon is also likely to be one of the few men who has gotten close to the top of Chimney Rock. One day he was flying in a helicopter and taking pictures of the trails between Torrington, Wyoming and Scotts Bluff, and he asked the pilot to take him over to Chimney Rock. When the pilot got close, Gordon looks down and was like, I can step out on top of Chimney Rock. And so he started to, and he was about to put his foot on it, and another dude that was in the helicopter grabbed him and pulled him back in and said, dude, if you do that, you're going to upset the balance of the helicopter, and the rotors will be all out of whack, and we're going to crash and die. So
don't do that.
Yeah. I can't fault him for that. If I am that low that I can put a foot on top of Chimney Rock, that's going to be my instinct too, is, hey, I'm going to put my foot there. But it got me to thinking about how many people on the trails had tried to climb it. And maybe some did, and some were successful, but we don't have any accounts of that.
That makes me think that no one actually did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least if anyone died from it, it was never recorded. So
yeah.
You think that, we have recorded incidences of people trying to, jump over the Brooklyn Bridge or whatever, jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, and we have all those kinds of things, but absolutely no account of someone trying to scale Chimney Rock, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It makes me think that I don't think anyone really wanted to.
Yeah, either they didn't want to, or I've been there, so it's really hard to hold on to stuff, and it's going to break away and fall and die.
And if you respect Chimney Rock at all, you're not going to start putting carabiners and start picking in holes for crampons and all that to try to scale it. So no, I think that just wasn't done.
Yeah. It'd be interesting one day if they ever found an account. But, I mean, we pretty much have all the accounts of people coming through.
Yeah, and there are much, steeper spires out here that have been Needles State Park, it's Custer State Park, but this spires up at Sylvan, those have almost all been scaled.
Yeah, and even we have stories of Dome Rock. And when I was researching that book too, I interviewed the family, the descendants of Mr. Gearing, who owned the backside. No, he owned all of Dome Rock, and then he eventually gave it to the government to take care of. But people used to climb up that, and I found newspaper articles of people who climbed it. It's documented that they climbed it. But Dome Rock is also a little, I forget the type of rock it is, but it's a little stronger rock. Whereas I think even Chimney Rock, I think if you put crampons in there, you're going to tear it apart. You're not going to hold anything.
I hope no one gets any wise ideas by listening to this and we're challenging them. We're not challenging anybody to climb
No,
this.
please don't go climb it.
It's not only dangerous, but you can damage the rocks more than we would like you to damage it.
Yeah,
so.
And it's probably a felony too. So
don't. On top of that,
yeah, because it is a National Historic Site.
Oh yeah,
and it's protected. You're getting into trouble.
Yeah.
If you notice the Opera House downtown, the little awnings that are out front, a couple of storms ago, the framework of the awnings are still there, but the fabric is not. and they can't just take those down and put something else up because it's registered as well. It has to be kept the way it was. So my guess is they haven't replaced them yet because it's not cheap, and they have to do it to very specific thing. Yeah, they have to keep it the way that it was. The inside you can change around a little bit, but the outside of the buildings you have to keep as it was. You can do things like the Midwest Theater where they're restoring it. They did. It's been open now a couple of weeks, where they've restored it to what it looked like. You can do that, but you can't completely change the facade from what it was when it went on the register. Yeah. So,
and once you break a rock, you can't
fix it.
Can't fix it.
I mean, at least with those awnings, it's the fabric that needs to be replaced. So you just replace the fabric. None of the building came apart. So with all that land donated, the Historical Society also had to raise a total of $1.8 million, which included a huge renovation project of the Visitor Center, and that was finished in early 2020. Then they had to raise $1.9 million for the trails. So they started raising that $1.9 million about 5 months ago, and they just need $350,000. So they've raised a lot of it. And to me, that just shows how important Chimney Rock is to everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, in 5 months, they raised, I'm not doing the math, but if you need $350,000 out of 1.9, you're probably close to 80% there. You raise that much money in 5 months, people care about this place. So that doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. And they put out a press release as well, signifying who the donors were. And if you or I gave like $500, our names will be etched somewhere on the trail. They're recognizing people that are giving money.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I didn't put that in because I thought, nobody wants me to sit there and read, Jane Doe gave, $5,000. John Doe gave $4,000. Nobody wants me to read that, so I didn't include any of it.
I do like that. I do like that they do that. Up in Rapid, they have a small children's park called Storybook Island, and my grandpa helped build that, so he has his name on one of the bricks.
Cool.
So I always go out there and look for it. So I always I like the idea that these people's family can come back. It's like, hey, that's my so-and-so, and they helped do this, so yeah.
And I didn't do it for the money, but I love the zoo. And when you go into the zoo, there's a sign of people who have donated money. And when they were raising money to get some renovations done, we basically took our part of our tax return and gave it to the zoo. And then one day when I was there, the director was like, hey, I want to show you this. And I knew he was putting it up for the large donors like the banks and the foundations and stuff. And he shows it to me and I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. And I'm looking at, how they made the sign, how they designed it and stuff. And then I saw my name and my husband's name. And I'm like, what? Why are we on there? We're like, we're not a bank. And he goes, no, we appreciate every bit that we got. So it is neat because if sometime in the future some distant relative comes, they can be like, hey, they like the zoo. And I do like the zoo. I wish I could get there more often.
Our zoo is incredible.
Yeah.
I think we do need to probably do a piece on that one day. Our amazing little Scottsville Zoo.
Absolutely.
Also been here all my life, so I grew up with that place.
And it's a cool place, and they just had a couple of baby zebras. I knew the zebras were born before anybody else. Well, not before anybody else. Before the public knew. I knew about the little baby zebras being born. I knew they were pregnant, and I just wasn't sure when they were born. And I need to get over and get some pictures of some more baby zebras. But work has just been so busy that I'll think, oh, I got time to go to the zoo. Oh, it's 8:00. They're closed. Or I got time now to go. Oh, it's 2 a.m. Can't go to the zoo. I could go both times, but I would be arrested. So, so on Saturday, July 29th, 2023, which was yesterday from recording time, the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation announced that the Walk to the Rock, the trails connecting the Ethel and Christopher J. Abbott Visitor Center, there you go, I did write it down, to the base of Chimney Rock, was dedicated at a public ceremony beginning at noon. The dedication took place at the trailhead on the Gordon and Patty Howard patio across from the Chimney Rock Cemetery. The trails are designed to be safe and ecologically sound, so visitors can enjoy the view while still preserving the landscape, and it protects the native grass as well as the habitats of raptors, swift foxes, prairie rattlesnakes, and prairie dogs. So you know way more about plants than me. I listed some of the animals that are there, and you brought that over today
grab real quick.
to show me a native plant that was here that I had no idea about, and Connor just taught me today. So I'm going to make him talk about it again because it's a very cool looking plant. It also looks painful.
Well, actually, it's a tree.
Okay, see, so already wrong. Well, wait, no, a tree is a plant, so I'm not technically wrong.
It is a plant, but it is a tree. It's commonly known as a honeysuckle tree, or northern not honeysuckle, the honey locust tree. Sorry, I got mixed up here. I only really use the Latin word for it, which is gladitia. So I mess up a lot there. But you'll find these all over Scottsbluff. You'll find them actually all over the Midwest. They turn a really pretty yellow color in the fall, and they have like literally tiny little leaves, tiny little olive-looking leaves. But what's really cool about these back in pioneer days is they used to grow these really nasty thorns on them. And they could get anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches. And when they harden, they're actually hard enough to go through other planks of wood, your foot, tires, and was therefore banned later on. And you really don't see these anymore as they became such a nuisance. They were going into tires and they grow like a weed. And they sucker from the ground, so it's really hard sometimes. If you get a grove full of these trees, you're in trouble. You really can't get through it. So, but what they did is they would take these spines and they would clip them off and let them harden and use them as nails. And so a lot of the times here in the pioneer days, when they were going through the trails, obviously they made their houses out of sod, but everything else still needed to be put together more or less with wooden nails. And the pioneers only had so many nails and didn't really have access to a lot of forges or a lot of blacksmiths to make them more, especially before the railroads came around. And so this was a neat little way to fix their wagon really quick, make a box, make a cabinet. Some of the tailors actually got pretty fancy with this more out to the east, where they got making like really nice furniture and stuff. But this is pretty much, a prairie nail.
That's awesome.
So yeah, was kind of one of the interesting things that were out here back in the day.
That is cool. So when you nail it into your piece of wood, does it hold as well as a nail then?
I was told it was.
Okay.
I am told that there's still furniture today where if you want to know it's an antique, they'll show you patterns to look for these kinds of nails, because the tops are obviously different. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how you can tell the age of the object. And
the neat thing about this is you showed up at my house today. And I'm like, why you got this plant? Well, and it fit right with what we were doing, and you had no idea we were talking about Chimney Rock today either. So
no, I didn't. And this was, as far as Nebraska goes, this was much more prevalent out east, because east was more of a savanna. And during that time, this is what you'd see, these groves of these. Now, as I said, for the most part, they've been bred not to have these thorns anymore. So they usually call it thornless honey locusts.
Okay.
And those are the kind that you'll see most of the time. I'm very lucky that have 2 in my front yard that have been there forever. And every now and then you get a mutation where it will breed back out. It'll breed out to its original form. So that's what I'm showing Irene a branch of that I have right now of a honey locust with these thorns on them. And they're nasty, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they hurt.
I'm just imagining how painful that is
Yeah,
to step on. I mean, even just tapping it with my finger, I'm being very careful that you're not moving it when I go to tap it because I don't want that through my finger.
And as you can tell, this isn't even fully dried. I just clipped this, but
yeah, I mean,
this
you're
is hard.
Yeah,
this
you're
is a hard thorn, harder than any rose or anything else.
That's what I was thinking too. Is I used to help my grandma with her roses, and yeah, you had to be careful around them. But I was never worried. You know, every now and then I scraped my hand or something. But this right here, I'm going, man, if I grab this wrong, this crap's going through my fingers.
And I was told you can still find these out east. You just don't find them more out here, again, because they were infamous for puncturing tractor tires, and that was just not good for anybody.
And considering most tractor tires are taller than me, they can't be cheap.
No.
So I can see them wanting to eradicate the plant. But it's just another example of nature providing us what we need when we need it.
Absolutely. And and very, very clever that how it was used, in my opinion. I love the idea that, hey, I don't have any nails, but I can still put something together with just trees. So, and of course they also had other like carpenter tricks where you can have slotted in and stuff. But
yeah. And I've seen some of those things as well in carpentry where they make the joints so they slide together.
But I mean, imagine if you broke your wagon or something popped off and you lost your nails.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that happened quite a bit. And I don't remember on the Oregon Trail game if you could buy nails.
Good.
Like, come to think about it, I think that was something that you should logically have been able to get, but maybe not.
Yeah, but I don't know if I ever bought nails.
Yeah, but maybe you didn't need them because you knew this little trick.
Yeah.
You just knew that there would be honey locusts.
And I will take a picture of this later and put it up on our Patreon page so folks can see what it looks like. And I was laughing, too, just a minute ago about, you didn't know we were talking about Chimney Rock today because I wrote this last night and finished about 9:30. And I thought, well, I'm not going to text Connor just to say, hey, this is what we're talking about. Plus, I wanted to throw the whole elk penis thing in there. So, but, we're not professionals here. It's not our only job. We don't sit and spend weeks researching one topic. We have a topic, we research it, and when we're done, we get done and we do it. I like listening to Behind the Bastards, and they have a whole script. They have the jokes written in. Every now and then they'll go off script, but we just basically have this little outline. Yeah. And if I want to quote something, I'll have what's quoted printed up, and then everything else, it's just we're going by memory, and we're just,
in case you can't tell.
Yeah, we're just hanging out chatting because that's what we like to do. So there was a press release put out, and according to the press release, the Walk to the Rock includes 4 10-foot wide hiking trails, ranging in length from 0.2 miles to 1.76 miles, and 2 130-foot bridges spanning ravines. The bridges make the path crossable for all visitors, including the elderly and those using a wheelchair, walkers, and strollers. The finely crushed gravel trail bed allows wheeled transportation and maintenance equipment to easily glide over the pathway. I don't think you can take your bicycle out there.
I was about to say, I don't think you can bike it, though.
And in that picture that I printed up, my printer started running out of color ink. That's why it's like, it turns green towards the side of the picture. That's not actually the field. It's my printer saying there's no more color. But it looks to me, and again, I had hoped to be down there before we did this, but you have Chimney Rock here, and the trails come out here. They're not, to me, this is the base, and I don't see anything going out there.
I don't see
the trails. You're much closer.
Yes, you do get pretty close, but you still have. Geez, that looks almost a half a mile to a mile still.
Yeah, and there's a parking lot here, and this bit right here is the end of the road where the cemetery is. And I went from where the cemetery is and crossed down into a ravine and back up and walked out to Chimney Rock. And so there's a parking lot there where you can get on that longer trail, but that longer trail also connects to the visitor center. So it's still cool that you can go out and around here. And I think from so if people are standing on the Donald F. Dillon Bridge, and the Dillon Foundation provided a lot of money for all of this to happen. Not far from there, I think if you're on that bridge and you're facing Chimney Rock, if you look over to your right, I think that's where the foundation of the house was. I know the original plans, and because I don't work at the paper, I'm not in touch with these people anymore. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would have asked them that when I did the story, but they had wanted to maybe possibly incorporate at least being able to point out where that house was. So I totally want to go out and walk around on all the trails. I'm just not sure when they're open or if they're open all the time, because this one here obviously connects to the visitor center. So you would have to be there when it's open, but this other one is over at the parking lot. So I'm thinking if I went at 6 a.m., that wouldn't be a big deal, because I like to hike when it's cooler, and it gets ungodly hot here during the day. Also, folks, if you come here during the summer, please look out for bull snakes and rattlesnakes. At the visitor center one year, I think it was 2017, I walk up. They knew I was coming to do an interview with the paper, and I'm walking up, and one of the guys that worked there came out, and he's like, "Wait a minute, Irene." And I just stopped him like, I already know why I'm waiting a minute. And he had the stick in his hand, and he's looking around. He had already thrown a bull snake 3 times back out into the prairie. I mean, not thrown, like picked up and chucked like a baseball.
No,
he had a stick with
outside,
and it's a metal stick, and it's got that little loop on the bottom where you can pick up the snake, and moved it back into the woods. And he didn't, in case it had come back, he didn't want it to be scaring me, but it didn't come back that day. But I do know that they're out there quite often. So if you go, just be cautious of that. Well, hello, Londo, how are you? He probably wants some food. So I think this will be interesting. And see, there it is, the historical farmstead site. So you can kind of see that from there. I've gotten to walk on there. But the day that I went out to Chimney Rock, I actually went out to it. Yeah, you can lay it right up here, and he shouldn't be able to get to it. And I don't mind if Londo eats plants, because he's a cat. He eats whatever he wants. I mind him getting one of them little thistles stuck in him. You can give him this piece that fell off, though, and he'll be occupied with that for a little while. So when I went out there, the person that was in charge of all of the historical sites for western Nebraska was going out there to do some surveying and taking some pictures for this. The land, it was a while after I had done that story. She was out there taking photos of, what it looked like, what condition it was in, because they were still in the planning stages of how close are we going to go, where can we make these trails and stuff. So I actually got to go out and climb up a little bit of Chimney Rock, and it's because I was there with her and was supervised, and she dared me to climb the entire thing, and no, that was not happening. One, because I know I'm going to fall and die, and 2, I wanted to be respectful of it. So when you look at Chimney Rock,
it's like on a mound.
Yeah.
A really
So
steep mound.
I got to the top of the mound. I didn't actually get on the chimney.
Gotcha.
I know people who have gone on there, and I have chewed them out. And just to get onto the mound, the ground is so loose that it's still not safe. And that's why I'm not even sure if I got to the top of the mound. It just got to a point.
Soft.
Yeah, it's really soft. It's slippery. You can't get a good foothold on anything. And her main point was, this is why we don't let people out here. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to have injuries all the time. But we walked all the way around the base and took pictures. So I have pictures of that, and I have pictures of her doing her surveying stuff for her job. And she doesn't work there anymore, but I'm still not going to name her name. And the cool thing was, we went in October for this hike, so everything should have been dried out. It was soaking wet. It was just an unusually wet fall. And by the time I walked from the cemetery to the base, my pants were soaking wet all the way up to my waist. And when you get to the fall out there, the plant should only be around a foot high. Mm-hmm. And they were coming up to my waist. So that's probably, a good 3 feet high? Maybe 3.5, I don't know. I'm short. And a lot of stuff was still kind of green. So I was just like, whatever. I'm not going to get a chance to come back out here. I don't care. But I was soaking wet when I was done. And people hike out there all the time. There's actually a little plaque that was put out there that unless you went out there on those unofficial trails, you were never going to see it. So that's something I want to see as well, because the way that this is laid out, that I don't think you can see that marker because it's right at the base. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've taken the marker and moved it in or not, but I mean, it is literally at the base. So when they said you were going to be able to hike to the base, I figured they would just have everything roped off around the base. But the trail looks like it's not even going out that far. Mm-hmm. So, I'll mention it in another episode when I get a chance to get out there and go. But, like I said, I want to go at around 6 a.m. when it's nice and cool. Another cool thing that was out there is there's sage everywhere. And I was bent over taking a picture. And, my shirts aren't tightly fit. They're a little loose. So it was a shirt like the one I'm wearing today. I bent over and I was taking a picture, and a bumblebee stung me right in the stomach. So it had to go through my shirt and a little bit of air to get to my stung. And I'm allergic to bee stings, so I'm going, well, we're kind of screwed because we're not out in the middle of nowhere, but we're far enough from a hospital that, And it was all right. My friend went and got some sage, and it's really weird because you hear the stories. She just rubbed that sage on my stomach, and the burning went away, and I didn't have any swelling from it. It was red, mm-hmm. but I didn't get any swelling from it, and I was fine the rest of the day. Good. So I thought that was kind of cool.
And the bee died, so.
Yes, yeah. And I do have a picture of that bee because it went onto the flower that I was taking a picture of. So I'm like, I'm going to take a picture of this guy in case he does kill me. And then I don't know if you can see down there's a little green bit of a bottom of a bottle. Uh-huh. That is what I found out there. And I kind of violated the archaeology rule. And yeah, I have a degree in anthropology. You should leave stuff where you found it. But I found this bit of green bottle, and it has NEBR on it. So you can kind of, and it's abbreviated. So you could kind of date the bottle from that because we went from NEBR to NEB to NE for abbreviation of the state. But I did take that as a little commemoration of my trip out there. And if anybody wants it when I die, they can have it. But for now, it's sitting right up there next to the little cat with the waving arm that I got in Hong Kong. So hopefully I get out there in sometime soon. And if you get out there, feel free to join us on Patreon and talk about, your experiences out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'd love to hear what you all did when you were out at Chimney Rock.
Yeah. Because I see so many people that go take a picture from the highway and never go into the visitors center, and then they also don't know there's a cemetery out there. I mean, there's lots of history out there, and I want to see what they've done with the trails and what kind of info is out there.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. I haven't gone there for quite some time.
Yeah. And it's not really that expensive. I think it's like $5 or $7 to go in the visitor center and see the museum.
Yeah, and that's about all the museums here, folks. We don't have any like $50 tickets to get into museums around here.
Yeah,
they're for the most part $5 to $10.
Yeah, I think the zoo is the most expensive thing around here.
Probably.
Even Legacy. Do you remember what we paid? Because
$10 each, and I think kids got in for free.
Yeah.
So
yeah. They're all totally worth it, in my opinion, and most of them rely on that money as well. So anyway, that's it for us for today. We'll be back next time with something more interesting, and hopefully I don't get it done late at night so Connor will know what we're talking about.
What could be more interesting than an elk penis?
I wish they had stuck with that.
And on that note, we'll see you later, guys. Thanks for listening to Storytelling on the Plains, a podcast about the history of western Nebraska. If you enjoyed this episode, visit our website, storytellingontheplains.com, where you can subscribe to the show through a variety of podcast hosts so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to support the podcast, visit patreon.com/storytellingontheplains, where you can get the episodes early and bonus content. You can also help promote the show by sharing the podcast with others, posting social media, or leaving us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, thanks for listening to Storytelling on the Plains.